Probably not. But Albert's depiction of her will send you to Google to find out more about this faded but moneyed grande dame of the theater, as Albert calls her. "Put down your luggage and make an entrance, darling," Mencken tells young Albert, who's just gotten off the plane from Grand Rapids to audition for the American Theater Wing School. "Project, darling," she adds. "Project, dear. We can't hear you." After the audition, Mencken tells Albert, "It's a tough business, darling, but it can be good to you." Thus begins Albert's rollicking ride through the American theater. Albert is there for the beginnings of Off-Broadway in Greenwich Village. You need a movie star's income to live in the village today. But Albert evokes a neighborhood of struggling actors, writers, musicians, and painters who hang out at the San Remo Cafe, gone, and talk about Lotta Lenya and Kurt Weill or the latest play at La Mama. He meets Sam Shepard. He was wearing Levi's and no shirt. He looked like an American god. Sensing I was a little tense, he put a soft black leather vest on over his skin. I transitioned from not being able to breathe to mild hyperventilation. And while only in his 20s, Albert becomes the producer of a touring company of the Fantasticks, Tom Jones and Harvey Schmidt's long-running off-Broadway musical. Every aspiring producer should hear Albert's chronicle of that tour. They will learn that to make it in this rough and tumble and often absurd business, you'd better have chutzpah. Albert did, and his outwitting of the powerful musicians' union is David Merrick-like in its cunning and hilarity. At the height of the battle, Albert met Schoenfeld and Jacobs, then toiling in relative obscurity as lawyers for the mothballed Schubert organization. They staged a boardroom coup in 1972 and would eventually rise to the top of the American theater. Albert had a ringside seat at the Schubert Circus, and he became one of Bernie and Jerry's closest confidants. Back then, Albert, always one for the grand theatrical gesture, took to wearing a cape. Schoenfeld called him David Belasco. They didn't always see eye to eye, however. Bernie and Jerry were fighting for their turf, Broadway. Albert's heart was with Off-Broadway. In the 70s, he produced or general managed such seminal, and sometimes controversial, shows as Futz, Peace, The Unseen Hand, and The Dirtiest Show in Town. Some are probably dated now, but back then, as the country was being torn apart by the Vietnam War, they had so much potency they'd leave mainstream critics such as Walter Kerr foaming at the mouth. Albert's chapters on these shows remind us of how vital, in a time of social upheaval, theater can be. From their perch in their offices above the Schubert Theater, Bernie and Jerry looked down at Off-Broadway with disdain. "How are things in the sewer?" Jerry once asked Albert, a remark that infuriated the young producer. Eventually, Albert would lure Bernie and Jerry into the sewer. He did so with a musical by Alan Menken and Howard Ashman called Little Shop of Horrors. Albert helped broker a deal that made the Schuberts co-producers of the show with Cameron Mackintosh, another one of Albert's friends who has some delicious cameos in this book. When Little Shop became a big hit at the Orpheum Theater in 1982, the Schuberts started calling it Our Little Slot Machine. When they wanted to raise ticket prices, Albert fought back, fearing high prices would drive off-Broadway theatergoers away. He lost the battle, but his objection to higher prices resonates today. Tickets to Hamilton are $800, which means that, on any given night, the theater is full of kids with trust funds. Broadway, like so much of New York City, is increasingly for the 1%. The theater Albert was most passionate about was for everyone. Albert brought that passion to Broadway, producing or general managing such acclaimed plays as The Grapes of Wrath, The Song of Jacob Zulu, The Last Night of Ballyhoo, and Dirty Blonde. But he's no snob and enjoys a bit of fluff, such as The Boy from Oz, starring Hugh Jackman. That show was the only time there was ever a rift between Albert and myself. He tells the story here, and I have no quarrel with the way it unfolds. I didn't care for the show, and, trying a bit too hard to be a contrarian, made fun of the hype surrounding Jackman's performance as Peter Allen. Albert was having none of it, chastising